Welcome back to another episode of the Online Course Elevator podcast. Today, I have a very special guest. I'm really excited to have her on. She runs a virtual assistant agency for course creators, specifically on Kajabi. She seems to be a real rock star in this space, and I'm excited to talk more about Kajabi and course creation and how course creators can empower their businesses with people like her. So, welcome to the show, Tamber Belshaw.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you today. I feel like I could eat, breathe, and sleep talking course creation, which is just awesome. So excited to chat with you and dive in.
Yeah, Tamber, that's kind of why I started this podcast in the first place, because I tried the whole YouTube thing. I tried just making micro content, and I was like, I just want to talk to people about course creation and business operations and all of that kind of stuff. I'm just going to do a podcast. It's just so much easier, and then it makes really great content, and to me, it's a lot more relaxed and fun to sit here and talk back and forth than to try and follow a script. So,
You know what? That's my favorite part too. So I am an advocate on listening to podcasts when I drive, when I'm doing the dishes, when I'm grocery shopping. I've newly adapted that. And it's so interesting because I feel like it starts to feel like a conversation with the audience, which is really the goal of content, right? We want to reach who we're meant to reach and get our word out there. And so I think podcasts have been an excellent marketing stream, and it's really exciting to be in the space and see them grow and see so many amazing course creators grow with them. So
absolutely. So I'd love to start by just you telling the audience a little bit about yourself and how you got started in this space.
yeah, that's awesome. It's actually a funny story. So I worked in sales and marketing for 10 plus years for a trade receivable management company. And I remember always dealing with CEOs and CFOs of small to medium sized businesses and thinking, I want to be a CEO someday. Like in my young 20-year-old brain, I knew I wanted to tell people what to do and run something, right? But I was like, and to me, that was brick and mortar, right? In my head, I just thought brick and mortar, and I hadn't really considered the online space. But right before 2020, I had pivoted from one company to another, and I was working from home. It was my first time working remote. I was putting my son on the bus in the morning, and I just thought, this is amazing. But I had switched companies and was kind of burnt out from the work I was doing and wanted something I was more passionate about, that was more about me and I could really excel in. And so I Googled how to make money online and found being a virtual assistant for $30 an hour. And I swear I just started telling my family and friends I was a virtual assistant. I landed my first client and started to get my feet wet. The pandemic kind of did the opposite for me and put me in an ideal prime position to work in this industry. I quickly realized I had so many ideas to help coaches and course creators scale their business by having the support that they need. But one person can only do so much. And frankly, I'm a better CEO than I am a virtual assistant. But I had connected with some amazing people. And so I had this thought in June of 2020 to put together an agency that would really provide the back end support to help these businesses function and grow, like just client care, calendar management, tech, implementation. It's so instrumental, and it really takes a village, right? Just like in life, it takes a team. Not one person can do it all. And so I just thought if I could devise a team to help people really grow and scale their business, then I could really truly make the impact and continue to offer the project outline and strategy that I was giving my clients on a larger level. So we launched officially with 5 virtual assistants and no clients in August of 2020, and quickly landed our first client who landed us right in the heart of Kajabi. And I absolutely fell in love with it. It took, obviously, if you're in Kajabi, a little bit of adjustment to learn the back end. But now that I've been in and out of so many systems, it's just absolutely my favorite. So fast forward to today, we're helping hundreds of course creators create sales pages and courses and websites in Kajabi and supporting them on the back end of tech and design and administrative and client support. And just really amazing. I couldn't do it without my team. So super exciting.
That's really awesome. So I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
How did you go about gathering that first kind of group of 5 team members?
So that's a great question. I actually went, I had invested in a coach and I really wasn't sure how to bridge that gap. And she had the best idea. She was like, well, form some of the systems and processes and then just go out there and tell people that you want to find quality VAs. So my ideal VA was somebody who absolutely loved this work. They wanted to be in the space. They want the flexibility of working from home, but either not they weren't necessarily struggling to land clients, but it just wasn't their forte. They didn't want to put the systems and processes, and they don't want the responsibility of running a business. I knew that there were amazing VAs out there that just wanted to do the work and wanted somebody to alleviate that, which is what I love to do, is help my clients bridge the gap of where they're looking to go with how, and find the people to help implement it. And so I hired my first 5 VAs and told them they would be in a holding pattern. And then as soon as we got a client, we would get them started. And within 6 weeks, I had all of them working with their first client, and actually hired one myself, Wendy, who's my operations manager. And she started out as a VA for one of my clients and working 2 hours for me, and is now my full-blown VP of operations. So
Wow, that's
that was
awesome.
really exciting. Yeah. And a few
Okay.
of them are still with me.
Okay. So you were really looking for a specific kind of profile of person to work for you, and so you just went out and kind of found them.
Yeah. And for me, and to have under my company, but more importantly for my clients, right? Because I think when clients come on board, they might want an initial project done, they might want support, but they definitely want longevity. Like, you have to learn the tonality. You've got to really understand somebody's business and become a part of it. And so I wanted to make sure that that was going to be a good fit for the client and for the virtual assistant, right? Somebody looking for longevity, somebody not on their path to another venture, not to say it doesn't happen, but for the most part, this is what they knew they wanted to do. They wanted to make core relationships with clients and really maintain them and provide for their families. And so I saw this as the perfect way to like marry the two together and do that.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about your target audience, like who you serve. I know we spoke about it a little bit before the show started, but you have a very kind of specific kind of not niche, but kind of course creator that you're serving.
Absolutely. So I always say that my niche isn't like what they wear in the morning or who they work with. It's really a certain type of place that you're at in your business, which is you've started to sell your services. Maybe you're offering a one-on-one, you've dabbled in course creation, you've done workshops, you've done some of the light work and you've started marketing, but you're really ready to officially build your entire course in Kajabi specifically and launch it. And so I help a lot of newer course creators who need some guidance. They need the implementation specialist. They've already invested in the strategist, like they have the strategy, but they need to execute it. And they need somebody to really side by side, walk hand in hand with them to do so. Not only so the work gets done and they don't have to feel the burden of all those tasks. They can have the support that they need, but they also want to understand what's going on in the background. So they're still very much involved in this process for their business. And so I've worked with a lot of doctors and coaches, money mindset coaches. But really, if you're in a place where you're ready to build your course and you want to make sure you're checking all the boxes, you want the support to do so, and you're really ready to officially build and launch, then that's kind of our niche and where we help out.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I think there are a lot of course creators. I mean, we talked about this a little bit, those course creators who jump in, they're kind of painted a picture of this is going to be easy. I'm just going to go build this thing. I know about it. I'm going to go write this course and record it, and I'm going to spend all this time doing it, but then it's just going to sell like wildfire. I'm just going to put it up on the site and people are going to buy it. And so I think it's great that you can come in behind them and support them and show them actually how to set up, that little nitty gritty, the technical things, because they just don't expect there to actually be all these business operations and technical things that they have to do on the back end to make this work, and it becomes so overwhelming.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's often what happens, right? Because we've invested all this time into building this amazing structure, and we've worked with clients and we've started marketing. We're doing the social media and we're answering the emails and we're networking. We're like doing all these things. Then we invest, a lot of times people invest thousands of dollars into a strategist. They get this amazing strategy. They're seeing the strategy work for other people around them. Maybe they've been involved in a funnel themselves, or they've had other course creators side by side that have been successful, but nobody's really breaking down the project specs to implement that on the back end. And you get in there and it feels really overwhelming and things aren't connecting and you're not quite sure, even sometimes the simplest things, of how they lead to the result. And so something that I'm really honing in on this year as well, really educating my clients and in all of our content that's going out to the world, is like, you can have all the strategy, but there's this whole implementation process that you invest time or money or whatever that looks like, whether you hire somebody or you do it yourself. There is a process. It is a lot. It's okay to say it's a lot. And there's a lot of work that goes into it. And that's what we're going to figure out together Whether that's, you hiring us for a specific part or us doing the whole thing for you, we're going to really walk hand in hand, because I do agree with you. It's painted, right? Like, oh, just perfect. You've proven it one-to-one, put it on a course. You'll be rich in the Bahamas somewhere, drinking a drink and thousands of dollars are chinging in your PayPal account, right? But there's so much that goes into the setup of it, so much that goes into the marketing, and then really in testing the funnels and workflows, right? And so a lot
Mhm.
of people come to me like, so what is a funnel? Right? And they put in all this information and they're like, but this is just like a sales page, checkout page, and a process from how they get from my freebies to my sales page. And it's like, yep, and that's a funnel, but it's just not that easily defined. And so I think, talking about it, having episodes like this, like all of that's so important, so we can all realize what goes into it and help build each other up to get there. So whether that's done for you or you're doing it on your own, it's a lot and it's exciting and it's a part of the process. And I'm sure you will be on that beach somewhere,
Right.
raking in while you're working down the line, right? But getting it set up is just totally the first step on the way to that dream. So
Yeah, and I think part of getting to that beach, that mountaintop, where whatever success is to you, is being able to hire out these tasks that you, as the course creator, don't need to be doing. Because generally, you've got all the knowledge, you've got all the expertise in that. You need to be the face of the business, you need to be speaking, you need to be worrying about how the content's delivered and how your students are enjoying it and that kind of thing. You don't necessarily need to be answering every email or doing customer service or, like you said, setting up a funnel and testing it. It takes experience in that to get all of that done. Would you say that a lot of your course creators who come to you have already started selling, or are more of them brand new to the course creation space and don't know where to start?
Um, I would say they've started selling. So they've like started considering selling. They've put offers out there, but they haven't necessarily had a ton of success. And a lot of that
Mhm.
has to do with just getting to the point where at some point you do have to have that workflow and funnel built out. So your customers are having a good experience. And so you feel comfortable really promoting it. And like a lot of times they'll be doing so much work networking, but then it's like, oh, okay, well, like, how do we find you? Where do we find you? Right. And it's like, we can go on my Instagram, but so much is lost in translation when we're just like looking at your social media. I mean, how many accounts do you scroll by and you don't take any action to really engage with them? And I'm a firm believer in like, have a social presence, but have an audience that's off of your social media channels, like in your email, somewhere that's creating that connection with them, because that's what this is all about, right? Just finding connection. And that's why there can be 9 million of us doing the same thing, but we all can be successful because we can reach those clients. And that's the first step. And that's where your opt-in funnel, right? Your freebies, all of those things
Mhm.
come into play, and they're involved in social media. Like the link in bio feels like something so simple, but when you think about that, when you go on somebody's link in bio in their social media channel to continue to work with them and you click, that's part of the funnel, right? And then you go to their next thing, you enter your email, that's part of the funnel. And then there's all these things that happen on the back end. So for somebody to be marketing, selling, having the conversation, supporting their clients, and then doing everything that connects to every click, you can even considering the customer service emails and the forgotten passwords and all those things, like it's just too much to expect for one person.
Yeah.
And it's doable, I mean, you can definitely take messy action and get going, but I think everybody reaches a point where they recognize they need a certain level of support. And that's really where we come in.
Yeah. And I love the saying good is better, or done is better than perfect. But at
Yes.
some point you have to start working towards perfect.
Right.
You have to say, okay, well, it's done and it works, but now I've got to start improving it. And
Right.
so I think a lot of people, it's hard, right, to think about, okay, how do I actually assess what I'm doing and optimize it? How do I look for the gaps? How do I find where people are falling off? Uh, how how do I know if people are enjoying what I've given them already? And really getting that feedback on, oh, hey, I wish you'd have talked more about this, or can you explain that? That really helps you improve your course and everything too, and your funnel. And I just think that's something that not enough people talk about, is the whole like optimization and improvement process that you have to go through.
Absolutely. I took an amazing workshop by an instructional design specialist, Deb Barnes, and she was fantastic. And I had been in this industry for about a year and a half, and I had this epiphany in her class because she told us there's what you're going to teach and you think your students are going to walk away with. There's what your students come into your course expecting to learn, and then there's what they really take away, right? And those are the things that we can't predict. Um, the small pieces and the big pieces that nobody expected when they went into the course, like us and them together, right? And they came out the other side. And so you're so right that we have to constantly be taking in feedback, listening, shuffling through the noise. And I think it's so interesting because what you presented is so true, is that there's like a marketing strategy, then there's like the funnel setup and implementation process that we assist with. Then there's almost like part 2 of your marketing strategy where you go back through it and you're perfecting it and you're using data to analyze and improve it. And that's what you're able to constantly do. So when you're investing in help, you're able to get more of that 30,000 feet bird's eye view, right? Because
Yeah.
you're able to step back. And when you take the first step back and you first delegate even just 5 tasks, you get this like space in your brain, right? And that opens up for more creativity. And I think the more people feel that, the more they get going. And that's something I've really experienced with my clients. They come to me, they have really no idea what they want. They want like 60 things. And I'm like, okay, here's what we're going to do. And this is really my role as the agency owner and getting them set up with outsourcing is I literally require them to just take the first 5 things. What are 5 things that we can take action on for you right now? And I don't care if it's building a freebie funnel or creating a graphic. When I take that off their plate, their space and what they're able to create in that little bit of space is so fantastic. And they get to connect to that feeling and feel that sense of relief, which then generates the ability to continue to outsource. Because I think that's another problem is people are like, yeah, let me give it to them. But then like, what do I give? Right. And how do we like draw that out? So that's a big part of our process here at Belco is helping our clients identify what their strategy is and what pieces we can take on so they can implement and grow and create it to be this business that is totally drawn from their zone of genius that's just benefiting their clients and then their clients' clients and their clients' clients. And that's the ripple effect we get to have. So I think it's so powerful, even just starting with the first 5 things. So delegating is just such an important process.
Yeah, and it's a hard thing to teach somebody how to do. They kind of have to see the power in it and go, okay, it's okay that I've given this to this person. It's going to be all right. Because we've all paid for services on Fiverr or Upwork or something like that, and it's come back just something we can't even use. Or we realize, oh, I asked them for this. It's not their fault. I asked them for this, but this isn't actually what I need. And so having somebody like a strategist or an agency owner who can say, well, now why do you want that? What are you trying to achieve? And okay, well, we actually might need something more like this. Kind of be that like brainstorming team member with them to actually figure that out, I think is really, really important. So when your clients come to you, what would you say is the number one problem that most of them have, or the biggest problem that you see? Obviously, it's probably a large problem, like they just need help. They don't know about, like we talked about, all the nitty-gritty, but maybe something like one of those top 5 that, they need your help with.
100%, they have the pieces and they have no idea how to connect them together.
Okay.
That's it. I mean, so off. Sometimes it's the complete other end, right? Somebody's either coming to me like, I just already know that I'm going to invest in this, and you guys just do the whole thing. We bought the account. That's it. Go in there, build it out, right? So there's like that side of business. Then there's a whole nother side of business that it's like, we've spent some time investing on themselves or whatever that might look like, maybe hiring somebody for a one-time project and it just not coming together. And they have these pieces and they're just missing a few vital pieces. So like, for example, they've got the freebie opt-in, but it's not set up on the back end to where somebody's going to then get the email, go to the thank you page, follow them on socials. Like those are just some small details in a freebie funnel that's, pretty straightforward that are missed because they just don't have that connection. So I would say that's probably the number one thing that we help them out with. And then on the other side of that is how that leads into their social media plan. So I think the planning piece is also really huge of like, okay, so when I have this thing, like, then what do I do with it? Right. And they have that strategy. They do have it from their coach or however they came to us usually by this point. But they just aren't understanding like almost like physically how it's happening. And so we're able to solve that for them too.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's great. No, and I can say too, just personally understanding myself, I'm not naturally a social media person. Like that is something I'm learning as a solopreneur, because when I worked for a course, I had my own team to handle social media. I didn't have to, I basically approved everything and I worked on the higher strategy level. And so I wasn't the one having to go take the pictures and write the captions and everything like that and come up with all of the weekly content. And so now it's like, oh boy, this is a lot. So
And I
it's a
think,
lot to do.
yeah, I think that's it right there, right? It's like, oh, okay. So you can tell people to do all sorts of things. You can go on Fiverr and be like, this is what I want, right? But if you don't understand the function, or somebody's not walking hand in hand with you saying, but if you do that, that generates this. So what do you want here to make that functional? Then it does get really hard, and it gets really lost in translation. And something that I'm going to say that maybe would be like, well, if it's not the case that I'm turning away from outsourcing, and something that not a lot of service providers are willing to say is 99% of the time when you start outsourcing, it's a collaboration process. It's not a hands-off process. And I think
Mm,
that's really important to highlight, and something I really try to stress to my clients. Like, are we going to create space for you? Are we going to take this off your plate? Like, absolutely. But when I tell you it's a collaboration process, like, there's going to be things that don't even translate how you thought it would, right? You're going to have to collaborate with your outsourcing service provider to get things to where you want 100%. So you will have your hands in your business. Now, 60 or 90 days out, by that time, we've learned your tonality, we understand your design aesthetic, like, we're really in tune with your brand. And that's where that relationship is paying off tenfold, because you might collaborate and work with somebody and show them how to do it, right? Which takes you as long as it takes to do it, right? And then in the first 30 or 60 days, as they learn and grow with you. But if you think about 15 million times that you did that in a year, how many times you posted on social media or created the graphic, the amount of time you save, that fuels back into either your downtime and rest, which is so important, or your productivity, and just knowing that it's done and having this beautiful collaboration and filling in your role as a CEO and really getting that experience everybody's talking about is so crucial. And it starts with how you outsource your first task, just like it starts with making your first post, right? So it's
yeah.
just all a part of the process. And I think it's much like, we watch kids grow up, whether it's our kids or nieces, whatever that looks like, and you see them going through all these little phases, and it's not the same as you, and it's not the same as the next person, but essentially you can see the growth, right? And it's the same thing with a business. Like, you are curating this from the bottom to the top, and you get to have freedom and control over what it looks like. And we get to spend time being excited and immersed in that. And so if we can help you do that and keep the tech headaches away, then that's what we're here to do.
I like that term, tech headaches, because that is, I mean, that's basically what you get. And I think what you said is really true in that it's fine to understand it, to maybe start it yourself, to learn, and so that you're not, one, so you're not being taken advantage of by anybody else, and two, just so you have a well-rounded view of what your business needs. But those things, they're going to change regularly. Those social media posts that are working the best, the strategies that you use, those are going to change regularly. And there's so much to be said for being able to have that headspace of being able to step away. Okay, this person is handling this for me. I can focus on the overall business.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely think you're right.
To add to that too, knowing that you have somebody in your corner and recognizing, you know what, right now in my business and in my offer, I need to pivot. And I can
Mhm.
know that I can pivot and I can generate this new offer, and I can bring that to somebody like myself and say, this is the end result. What does it look like to get there? And we can map that out for you and figure it out along the way, is so powerful, right? Because then we don't end up stuck. We don't end up trying to force the offer to work. We can adapt. And I love the saying. I read Marie Forleo's book when I first was starting my business. And the term everything is figure outable is so true. It's the reason
Yeah,
I named my business Solutions, because we can just figure out a solution. That's the number one thing I tell my clients. If you have a what that you want to accomplish, just bring it to me, because somehow, some way we will find the solution and we will get to something that you are 100% confident in when you're putting out into the world. And I think having that space and flexibility in your business for yourself, for your relationships with different service providers or coaches or whatever that looks like, allows you to be so dynamic, and is the true reason why all of these creators are really successful, because they've allowed to pivot, they've helped people pivot, and we're all just like in this brand designed to help this industry grow as a whole, and like everything we do leads into that.
yeah, yeah. And I think that's something I love about this industry too right now is that there's not, it doesn't feel competitive. it does, like, you have competitors, you have people who are in the same niche as you and that kind of thing, but there's so many opportunities out there and there's so many people wanting to learn. People can take courses for the same topic or get services for the same thing from so many different providers and learn something new every time and develop every time. And it's just, yeah, I just think it's a really cool landscape right now.
It is. It's so adaptable too, because you know what's so interesting for me, and this is why I tell people it doesn't matter who's in your industry teach, because when you watch your students go implement what you taught them and you see how that doesn't even translate 100%, that's like so beautiful to me. It's like
Mm,
watching somebody take an action and seeing how they've adapted it themselves,
right.
and success is the real point. And that's why we can all do webinars, but webinars land differently. And that's why it's so important to focus on your funnel, because it doesn't matter how it lands with your client is even going to look different.
Hmm.
So put it out there and see who you speak to, and then like let energetically the rest take the course.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that. I mean, something I'm finding with myself is, I don't know if I want to do an auto recorded webinar when I finally launch my product. I may want to do live webinars first. I may want to do live trainings and really get to engage with the audience first and see how that goes before I decide, oh, this is the thing I'm going to put out there as my free, lead magnet.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's the beauty of getting to do it. Like, there's so many different ways that you can go about this space. It really is something you can base on yourself. So,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it's funny, I've adapted that in such an interesting part of my business. And I probably could still have an argument with my original coach over doing it this way, because I'm pretty much doing the opposite of what everybody else is doing in this area. But like the way we do our packaging is that we do like pay as you go. You're not locked into a retainer. Like I'm a big believer in the service speaks for itself, and our
mm,
business has grown because of that. But that flexibility that I employ in my policies, so people can come and do what they need to. Because like somebody at the beginning stages of their course might need 10 tech hours to just connect stuff, right? And somebody else might need a full build or might need monthly support, whatever that looks like on a high retainer. And that looks so different for everybody. So by allowing people to just come in where they're at, get started, they don't have to have some big obligation to a service provider to do it. And they get to take action, feel so flexible for them, and is so flexible for me. And we still work, right? We've done over 220
yeah,
projects. Like we're good to go. And my VAs are taken care of, but that's like so against the norm in my industry. It's so preached to do the other way. But the flexibility streamlines out to so many different people. So it's like you can just always do it your way. Like your way is important. Your
mm,
way can be the first time anybody's done it that way, or it can be the same that somebody else did and it's going to still look different. So like you should be always having fun in the seat. Like that's the point. You should
yeah,
always be doing what drives you, because that's going to show up in the result too, right? Like whether it's a tech funnel, a social media graphic, or a podcast, if you're not being authentic, or if you feel it's going, not being uncomfortable, because uncomfortable is good, but it goes against what you're in alignment with, then it just doesn't make sense anyway. So you might as well just dive in, have fun, and do what
right.
feels good to you.
Exactly. Because otherwise, you're going to get stuck in something that you're not happy with, too. I mean, it's just like a job or something that you might take just because you need to make money. Like, you need to make this what you want it to be. And I think it's really about thinking, okay, what is my end result here? Like, do I want to sit on a beach and sip margaritas? I personally don't, but I'd like to take my family to the beach 4 to 6 times a year. Like that would be great. Or maybe even live on the beach, and still work. But you really need to think about that lifestyle that you want to build with this business and make that a kind of a North Star for you, just in how you set it up and how you operate it. Because otherwise you're going to start digging your hole because you feel like you have to do this thing that somebody else has said you had to do. And before you know it, you're buried in all these tasks and things that you didn't need. But now you're kind of stuck in them. It's really hard to get out. And so,
Absolutely. And you have to think that I've told all of my coaching clients, I do a little bit of coaching too on this, the same thing. It's how many hours a day do you want to work? How in your perfect, wave your magic wand, have your perfect life. What does that look like? Right? Because it does look different for everybody. And if you build your business to support something else, where are you going to have the systems and tools that you need to support the life you want? Right.
yeah.
So it can get messy and uncomfortable in the unknown. And I, even myself, running a multi six-figure agency, have had to work on that. I have had to go to my coach and say, this feels really scary to manage all of this at once. And, she just came back to me with, that's great, because now you're going to get and develop all the tools and systems you need to be at that level, if that's the level we're looking to work at. I'm
Yeah.
much like you. I don't personally want to be, I don't mind being on the beach, but my goal isn't to be on the beach. My goal is to be out of the weeds as much as I can, so I can help as many people as possible create real big plans for their business and reach all their customers. Like, that's my ultimate goal. I want to run, a multi-million-dollar agency that is servicing and helping 1,000 coaches and course creators at the end of the day, and providing jobs for hundreds of virtual assistants. Like, that's my overall goal. So what am I working to do to get there, and how am I building a business to support that? So it doesn't matter what your dream is, as long as you're building it in the background. And it does start from the ground zero. So it doesn't have to look like that initially for yourself as you set it up, but you should be setting it up with systems as optimized as possible to do that. And you should be reviewing every single quarter how you can get a little bit closer.
Yes. Yes. I love it. I love it. So this is actually getting into something I was excited to ask you about, which is, obviously you're super busy running this business, and I'm curious how you keep yourself focused and organized, and just any little systems that you use that might help some people listening, or even me, that we could adopt,
So I ask myself this question every day, and I wonder by the end of the day how I stay sane. So my best advice would be and this sounds very corny, but this is like, when I'm in the midst of a very hectic day, I go back to this, write 5 things you're grateful for. And it's specifically around what you're stressed out about, if you can reframe it. Okay. So that's so important. And even to just give an audacious example, let's say you miss a meeting. You could just be like, I am so grateful I got the rest when I missed that meeting. And now I have enough energy to empower that client, make it up to them, and serve so many more. Like, that is like, you can take the epitome of something bad and turn it into a good, like, and be grateful for it in some way. So gratitude, I feel, keeps going. More importantly than anything else, you are your business. You've got to take care of you. Like, if you do not take care of you, there will be no one to run this business in a way that it's going to work. You are the most important piece of the puzzle, and all of the systems are supported by you as the pillar. So make sure you're taking care of yourself and doing things to take care of yourself throughout this process, especially as you grow and scale your business. And then my third piece of advice is outsource it. I am able to do this at such a high level because I have a team. I have 2 project managers, an operations manager, and 27 VAs on our administrative side, and 9 VAs in our creative side. So there's a lot of support there. Everybody is in their zone of genius and they play their role. So wherever you can lean on support, and that can look different for everybody. It could be in your personal life. It could be in your, obviously in your business, you can bring on a team, you can have one dedicated person, whatever that looks like for you. Figure out your village and set it up. That can even be tools and systems like automated chat boxes and different things like that. But those would be like my best pieces of advice. Remain grateful and in touch with your why and in alignment with yourself. Take care of yourself and create the team as soon as you can around you to support you.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. I think that we think courses and online business are going to be a solution to allow us to take care of ourselves. And I'm guilty of this. I'm really guilty of this, but we think, oh, well, I'll be able to take care of myself when this thing is running and it's doing what it's supposed to do. I'm getting passive income. But it's like, well, if you don't take care of yourself now, I know when I'm not taking care of myself, because I don't want to do anything. I just want to lay on the couch and watch a movie or something like that. And it generally means that I haven't given myself the time and the grace to just relax a little bit. And luckily, I have my wife, who is really, really good at telling me when I haven't done that. But yeah, I think that's so true. I love the gratitude thing. I definitely think that's something I would like to implement as well.
Yeah.
So
I'm a big believer too in pen to paper, like write it down, because then you get to process the thought, you get to see it as it like materializes in front of you, and you get to look at it. And I think that allows the connection, and it's a constant, and balance just looks like constantly like tossing the ball to the other hand. So like when people say balance, they imagine seeing all these things equally lining up, and that's just not what it looks like. Sometimes we're a little bit more invested in our family life because we know we need to support that, and that's probably because we've been so invested in our business and we have to move the pendulum over there. But you've got to just recognize that. And when you feel chaotic and you feel like everything's all over the place, take a minute, take a deep breath and get yourself back in alignment. And most importantly, create the tools. I actually got this from my corporate career, and it's probably one of the best things that somebody's ever told me. And I didn't realize the weight of it until I had my team do it just a couple months ago. But list out your successful actions. So when you have a really good day and you're just like, this was the day, like I killed it, you're like high-fiving your wife on your way home, you're like doing the things right. What did you do that day? Like, did you stop and get coffee in the morning? Did you take 15 minutes to yourself before you started your day? Did you check your calendar the night before and make a to-do list? These simple little things that we don't recognize are just so supportive to us. Write them down. So that way, when you're in the midst and the thick of the craziness, you can say, okay, what have I not done on my successful actions? And what can I implement right now that can help me show up and be empowered where I'm at and continue to move forward and out of the funk? So I think that's so important.
Yeah, that is great. That's great too, because I heard somebody say once, plan out the day, like your perfect day, like the day you want to have, and then aim for that. But what you just said is actually looking at the days that you've had that went really well and saying, why did it go well? What is that? How did it make this day? So I really like that that's actually fed by data, kind of,
Yeah.
and you're choosing, okay, I need to do these things.
Yeah.
And then the last thing that you said, implementing the systems and everything. I mean, we talked a little bit about this, but just the fact that course creators really need to be able to do that. They need to be able to give that system to somebody else. They can be part of creating the system. They might hire somebody to create the system. In corporate, that's called a business analyst, and they go in and they say, oh, this is everything that needs to be improved, or a project manager. And they go, oh, these are the systems that we need to put in place. And we have to allow that to happen in our own course businesses too, especially as we get up to those levels of 5 figures and 6 figures and 7 figures. Those size businesses, they need operations, they need systems and processes. And you can't expect to be the gear in the middle of all of it, because then you can't move, and so you're stuck between the gear on your left and the gear on your right. And so when you need to get out and see the whole business, you can't, because then it all falls apart. And that goes back to not taking care of yourself, because then you can't even step away. So
And that's the key. And the thing is be a part of be the gear, but then shift out, right? Like that's why there's multiple gears in most functioning systems, because it's not just dependent on one person, and it never should be. It shouldn't even just be dependent on your VA or service provider, right? So you've got to find a way, and in the thick of it, you build what you need to sustain and survive. And then as you feel relief, you build around it and you perfect it. And that just goes back to what you were saying about looking at the information and improving it, and constantly working to reach that perfect model, to get it where it needs to be. And I think with course creators and people creating businesses online, sometimes it feels a little less tangible at first, or depending on what stage you're at in your business. But just like these big corporations and brick and mortar, right? Like we have to create those functions. And I couldn't just call up the CEO of Amazon and ask him why my order decided to be delayed today, right? So so how do we create not just so much as the access, but the chain of command and these different systems and processes that lead until they get to us? Because the reason why we can't call the CEO of Amazon is because they're up there making really high-end, important business decisions that are impacting everybody's delivery, right, throughout the whole country. So it becomes important. And I always tell people, okay, so if we look at this right now, does it serve you? Fantastic. And then if we were to grow your business 10 times your size, how would it serve you then? And how can we set it up to serve you then? And how can we prepare for that? So that way, manifestation wise and in general, we're building the path that you need regardless to get where you want to go, which at the end of the day is what this is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so I want to talk a little bit about your group, All Things Kajabi, because I was just really impressed by it. I thought that was a really cool group, and I joined it as soon as you mentioned it to me when we were chatting. And so what led you to start that group? I mean, obviously you're serving course creators who use Kajabi and everything. Tell me a little bit about it and what your goals are for it.
So this is such a fun, interesting story. I'm so glad you brought that up. So if we go all the way back to the beginning of our conversation where I brought up my first 5 VAs, I would talk to you about Donna. She is amazing. She is an OBM and a productivity specialist. And I will send you info if you want to include it in the show notes for people to check her out because she is fabulous. But
Definitely.
she actually was one of my first VAs. She worked for my very first client, and her first client was in Kajabi, and she actually built this group. And she has diverted from Kajabi and is now serving business owners on a whole nother level. And she came to me and asked if I wanted to take it over. And well, also that just being an amazing opportunity, being in the groundwork of what we did. I had planned for 2023 for me to really be showing up in content. Like social media was going to be my focus. It's actually hilarious because I run a full digital marketing agency. And if you went on our social media channels, we're changing this, but we're not constantly sharing content, right? We're like doing the work, not putting it out there, which just goes
Seems
to
to be
show.
what happens with agencies a lot, you know?
Which, by the way, you can, do over 220 projects and grow a multi-six-figure business without even having a social media presence. So don't let anybody tell you can't sell anything anywhere. But definitely, or that Facebook groups are dead. But anyways, that was a great opportunity for me. And she brought that to me. And I was like, it's almost as if exactly what I had been preparing for had lined up, because I want to be able to go and really put out valuable content and solve people's tech problems. And that doesn't always have to come with a dollar amount, right? There's so many little things. It goes back to this big problem that people have either set up or employed other people to do things they're not quite sure how they should work. And they need these little tidbits of help to push them forward. And so my focus right now this year, and my focus as this year goes on with my All Things Kajabi group, is to put as much foundational information about Kajabi in there as possible to create a community and a space where new course creators and course creators can show up and ask questions, specific tech questions, and get support, and where we can share. Another thing that I'm really passionate about is, while I don't want a Facebook group full of people soliciting, I do find it important that we can share our services and share our landing pages. And there's not a lot of space for that in the industry, where you can say, hey, I developed this sales page, take a look at it. Like, yes, we might get marketing eyes on it, but more importantly, like, do the functions work?
Right.
I think I recently did a training in there for a gal who had messaged me, and she told me her biggest problem with implementation is she was told to build a sales page, but she doesn't understand the components. It was a great opportunity for me to get live in the group to one of the templates that we refer people to, and went over each section and how it relates to the copy and how that translates to the design in Kajabi specifically. So I am super excited for that to be a space where I can just show up and serve my audience, and help them grow their business, and then give them an opportunity to see how we work, and, the opportunity to reach out and work with us, but more importantly, to get the support that you need. Because when you are in the weeds and you're at the beginning and you're doing it and you're not ready to invest, or it's just not feasible for you yet, I want you to have a place that you can come ask questions and get that support. So that's where we're really driving for that group.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree. Facebook groups aren't dead. I think they're still a very viable tool. And, I think the hard thing is getting them off the ground, that first initial bump of membership, and figuring out where you're going to get that, and just experimenting with where you need to go to find it, because you don't want to go to everybody else's Facebook group and say, hey, come join mine. So
Right. So SEO keywords, right? Because all things Kajabi, like, people probably just search the word Kajabi when they're looking for the platform. And I'm sure my group is one of the top things that come up aside the other official Kajabi groups and the other ones out there. So focusing on your group name and making it, just like everything else in your copy, talk to the transformation. Like, that is so powerful, right? Because I could have put, like, course creator solutions, but the transformation is, you're going to figure out about all the things about Kajabi, right? So that's one big piece of it. Well, I guess the group was already created with the name, but that would be my thought process around it.
right.
And then I have an amazing community manager, which is another thing you can outsource if you're looking to really optimize your group and you don't have a ton of time to dive into it. And you just want it to be a place where you show up and serve and teach. My community manager, I mean, our engagement is up 18%. We're letting in, 20 to 30 members a day. I mean, it is very active and busy. And I think that's a big piece to what we're contributing, the kind of space that we're creating, and the work we're doing inside the group and outside of the group to find the right people to come to the group and enjoy that process with us. So.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's great. Well, so Tamber, I got to ask, when do you think will you ever create your own course or membership, or?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking. So I have two courses right now. One is a free mini course on creating your first lead magnet, because I feel like that's the beginning of the process. Start collecting emails and where people get stuck. So if you're looking to build your list, I do have a free resource where you can go in. It's a mini course on creating your first lead magnet. Also, it is a lead magnet, right? So you can get the
Right?
full experience from front and back. And then I also offer a mini course, very attainable. It's $47, and it actually walks you through the process of creating the assets for your first course. There's so many course creation courses out there that are so targeted towards launching and strategy, but
Right.
nobody actually says, like, create this checkout page form, add these fields, right? It's the actual process from an implementation perspective. A little bit of a higher level view, but if you wanted to go do something for yourself, you can have access. And I simply created that because if somebody comes to me and they just aren't in a position to invest in outsourcing, I wanted something to offer them to either A, get them started, or B, help them begin the setup. And then a membership is coming. So I am creating an amazing membership that we're in the process of. This will be the debut, I guess, of it, is Funnel 911. The ultimate implementation support system. And it is specifically geared to help course creators who have the strategy, but are unsure of how to implement and aren't ready to outsource, to come and get the support they need with Monday project planning, to implement project plans into your monthly schedules. I know that seems like an obvious thing, but it's definitely something that falls to the bottom of the list, right? A lot of time we're just in the motion. It's also going to support with Q&As and co-working sessions, so you can dedicate time to get your funnels developed, help troubleshoot where you get stuck, and have that access to put it out there, and then give you exclusive access to our services at a discounted rate. So that'll be launching here in the next 60 days, and definitely something to look out for if you're a new course creator who's looking for some support and isn't ready for done for you services.
Wow, that's awesome. I'm excited about that. Yeah, that is
Yeah.
really great. And I definitely like to check out even just that membership, or that first course that you
Yeah.
mentioned about Kajabi, because if you go into Kajabi, like most people would say, oh, I'm going to create my landing page, right? And then they don't realize they actually have to go back multiple steps and create things like, oh, well, you need an offer, you need a form that's going to, all
Yeah,
of
you're
that
like,
kind of.
wait, where do I connect? Where does this connect to? Right. So yes, your landing page is not your first step. You're like all the way, you have to dial it all the way back. And that's exactly what this walks you through. And in this course, it gives you like a specific checklist so you can see what's coming ahead, and then you can engulf yourself so you don't find yourself, wait, am I on step 6 when I should be at step 1, and feeling a little overwhelmed by that. So it's very intentionally designed to like hold your hand and walk you through it. So I will have to send that over to you.
Very cool. Well, Tamber, is there anything that I didn't ask you that I should have?
No, I will just say, like, if you've been thinking about it, do it. You can just do it. And I think that is huge. And people want to know all the steps to the process. And believe me, they're important. And you will no doubt find yourself figuring them out, but you won't until you get started. So if you've been sitting on an opportunity to develop an online course, there's so much seat at this table. You should definitely join. Make sure you're following this podcast. It sounds like you have a great podcast here, Josh. I've listened to a few of your episodes prior to this call, and I'm so glad we connected. I hope I gave some valuable feedback, and I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, Tamber, and I think you definitely did. So thank you so much for coming on, and hopefully we'll get to chat again sometime.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.